Welcome to the Ready Room Podcast. I am Josh, and today we are with Chase Fisher.
Hi, Josh. This is Chase.
And this is the second episode of the Gunsmiths of America series. We really hope you guys enjoy. All right, Chase Fisher, would you mind introducing yourself to the lovely listeners and watchers online?
Yes, sir. This is Chase Fisher, and I'm a gunsmith, and I specialize in precision rifle barrel work, particularly for the precision bolt action rifle.
Okay. Where are you located, Chase?
My shop's in Belgrade, Montana,
Okay.
which is close to Bozeman, which a lot of people have probably heard of.
Man, I really considered moving to Montana. I'm torn between Alaska and Montana. I I'm tired of the heat. It's always hot here. I mean, we get like 1 month of winter and 1 month of fall. I would very much like to move to one of those two states. But you guys have the Yellowstone caldera, so it's kind of
Yeah,
tough.
I've been told if that thing goes off, you want to run towards it, not away from it,
Yeah.
because you don't want to live through it.
Well, man, being in Montana, you guys don't even need to run. You're just right there. If it happens, gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it'll still affect me down here in the southeast, just slower and more painfully. So, I mean, Montana's beautiful, though. Montana's beautiful. It's a good place to live out here.
Yeah, it is very nice, and a lot of wildlife per capita. So I
Yeah.
think people are shocked by the amount of wildlife they see just driving down the road.
Yeah.
So
I'll have to visit there again sometime. So, Chase, you said you are a gunsmith that specializes in barrels or precision barreling. How did you get into gunsmithing to begin with?
well, once I got out of the service, I'd found out about gunsmithing school,
Mm-hmm.
and so I went to the Colorado School of Trades
Yep.
and spent some time there, graduated, and then I, moved to Montana because my wife is from here and we wanted to move to this area. So I, at first I started working for myself, and that didn't go so great because, I didn't have any experience running a business or how to get started. And so eventually I just got a job working for a retail outfit that had a gun store, and I was a gunsmith there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, and I don't blame you because I'm running my own shop and it sucks. I mean, it is not easy trying to figure it out and kind of wing it. The one thing I think the schools should do more of, because I mean, my gunsmithing school did include a business section. They had a part of one of the classes in one of the semesters was dedicated to how to run your gunsmith shop. And it was, how to price your materials and how to, make sure you're breaking even at least and all that stuff. But they don't talk about insurance. They don't talk about all these different things that run your price up. And you're really kind of winging it. I even took some extra business courses, before I did gunsmithing. Since I got a degree, I had to do gen ed, which is awful. And during the gen ed, I took more business courses because I wanted to know. I learned nothing. I mean, I literally learned nothing. I can tell you the difference between a C corp and an S corp. Doesn't help me run my
Yeah.
business any better. So I get that, man. And honestly, I think that's something that a lot of gunsmiths who are starting out could learn from is go work with a shop who wants a gunsmith, right? Because if they want
Right.
one, you could fill that role. You're getting the experience, but you're also watching how they run their business. You could learn something from them if they've already been around for a while. There's something to learn there, right? So that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. Coming out of school and you don't learn everything you need to know at school.
Absolutely
So
not.
you already have a really brutal learning curve because there's so many different guns out there with so many different problems and so many different people that want so many different things. And you throw business management on top of that. That's two really steep learning curves. So the best thing to do is, it sounds old fashioned, but go to school, get a job.
Yep.
And, I had an instructor, a guy named Mike Tulowitzki, who said, you go to school to get a degree and you get your actual education when you're doing that job using that degree.
Yep.
And that's really how it is. You go to school to get a job, but your real education comes from doing the job. School just kind of gets you started.
For sure. I mean, and I think that's one of the failures of our school system is, everything's made for the act of getting the degree, right? Having this
Hmm.
proof of schooling and proof of the degree. When, let's say, welders, for example, we'll take welding. You'll learn how to pass an X-ray test, and you'll learn how to do certain welds with a TIG. And then you get to your job, you get hired because you passed their X-ray test, and then you're in awkward positions and different angles than you're used to welding in, and different materials than you're used to welding with, and you get really confused. And it's like, well, that is also a failure of the school system, because now this employer has to teach and train someone who should have been prepared when they got there. Especially, with high skill trades like welding and, I mean, I would call plumbing a high skill trade just because I don't feel like doing it. They make pretty good money. They shouldn't have to hire someone and spend a ton of time training them as if they're a school when they're paying them a good bit of money to do the job. So you're 100% right. Schooling can help you get the job, but the job itself is going to teach you way more than the school will. I've learned that trying to run my shop. I'm learning every single day. There's always some gun I've never touched before, never seen before. And like, you can't be afraid to go to the internet and look for resources or books, guys. Books are so
Or
good.
pick up the phone and call somebody.
Absolutely.
Usually someone will give you at least a direction to start in. I've called and emailed many manufacturers,
Yep.
and you have guys that see the same things every day. They'll say, look at this, and go from there.
Yep.
And that usually pays off. But yeah, what you're talking about, the disconnect between academia and the real world, I think that exists in all professions. That's why I think apprenticeships and, doctors do residencies, lawyers do internships. There's always that, there's what we're doing in the real world, and here's what you're learning in the classroom, and you have to bridge the gap. And schools can do a better job, but sometimes the private sector just moves at such a fast pace that it can be difficult for the inertia of an institution to catch up with it.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
and there are some outdated practices that are taught. So there's always, that's why I call this a journey, because it's not like a point A to point B.
No.
It's a point A to point B to C to D to E, and on and on and on until you never really reach the summit and go, well, I did it. I'm there. And it's like, it's just a gradual.
I mean, why do you think all of the really, really well-known and famous gunsmiths in America are extremely old?
Yeah.
It's because it's taken them that long to learn the things they know and put it into practice, But the good thing is, as we saw with Zeb, some of them are giving apprenticeships, and that is, I'm very thankful for that, because it means that there's a future for this trade. This trade isn't going to actually die like everyone thinks it is,
Yeah.
And that gets me, something that I really did forget to bring up a few minutes ago. But the whole point of this series, guys, if you're listening, the Gunsmiths of America series, it's completely made to benefit other gunsmiths and people who want gunsmiths, right? There are gunsmiths out there who are doing really, really good work, but the world is moving around them thinking they're not there, right? Or wishing they were there. And you just need to know who they are. So Chase is someone who reached out, and we looked at his stuff, and we looked at his barrels on his website, and we're like, man, this guy's really paying attention to precision, which we'll get into here in a minute. And I have no problem pushing him forward, or not forward, but getting his stuff out there so more potential customers can see it, right? Because I don't specialize in just barrels. I do some barrels, right? But I don't have time I do general gunsmithing, right? I'm always doing something different. This guy has found a niche, and he's filling that niche, so we need to support each other, right? All the gunsmiths need to support each other. And customers, if you're looking for gunsmiths, I mean, here's one in Montana. There was one in Colorado. Here I am in South Carolina. There's all different people across the country, but the world thinks the trade's dying, and I really don't want it to die. And I think we're looking at proof that it's not going to die. Because firearms are mechanical, right? They're going to fail.
Right. And I think as long as there is the passion for shooting, you're going to need somebody to work on them.
For sure.
I don't think production is obviously not slowing down. So, so it's not like we're running into less problems that we did in the past, because a lot of things are being made better.
Yep.
Better metallurgy, better engineering, better machines to hold tighter tolerances and more realistic clearances between parts and things. of that nature. So we're not going to see some of the problems we've seen with the old guns,
Yeah.
but there will be people wanting to do performance enhancement, and then eventually something will just give and something will break, and there will be a need for repair also.
There's needs for repairs, and there's need for, like you said, if someone's competition shooting and they shoot their barrel out because they're shooting long range every single weekend, they're gonna need to swap that barrel out, and they're gonna need someone who knows how to swap a barrel. I mean, that's just, it is what it is, right? So I don't think the trade's dying. But speaking of barrels, what made you decide to specialize in precision barreling or barrels?
Okay, well, after when I was working as a general gunsmith, it was really great because I got to see a lot of different guns and got a lot of experience. I actually built several rifles. And, it's kind of one of those, I wish I knew now what I knew then.
Oh yeah.
Barrel quality is everything. And there's just some stuff out there from certain manufacturers I just won't touch anymore. And, it's even the barrel makers. If you talk to them, they will get their steel from a mill or producer.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, because they don't even want to start with something that they don't know is good. Like, for example, Lilja barrels uses carpenter steel. And if you look up carpenter steel, it's some of the finest steel in the world. And it's definitely not the cheapest.
No.
But because they know that it's going to be quality and they buy a lot at one time, they can figure out with their machining, because every batch of steel can be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to find, how, I don't know how to make barrels. I have an idea of how it's done, but there's definitely a consistency they have to achieve. And if they're changing materials all the time,
Yep.
then they're fighting, kind of an uphill battle. So that's kind of the first thing I figured out was good materials if you want the accuracy and the good quality. And so while I was working as a general gunsmith, I wasn't making a lot of money, and being in a retail environment was very, very frustrating, because you have a lot of people who do not understand the trade craft and how you need to lock in and get focused and have no distractions to do your best work.
Yep.
It's same with, there's the art and the science of it. You'd imagine, a band locks itself in the studio to record their best music. They don't want a bunch of distractions. It's kind of the same thing. Like, you got to kind of be in the shop and be isolated and focus to get the best results.
Yep.
And so that was a really difficult thing to achieve in the retail environment, because there never was a good enough excuse to not answer the phone. And then you're in a convenient place and people constantly walk in and want to talk to you.
Or they want to pull you to come help talk to a customer or something like that. Oh, what do you think about this? Oh, it's awful.
And I understand people's want to talk to somebody that's knowledgeable. I completely respect that, but it has to kind of go both ways, and you have to have that. You have to have boundaries,
Yeah.
And so that was a difficult thing to establish. So after one hunting season, it got really busy during hunting season, and I was working a lot of hours just keeping up and keeping people happy and actually cranking out work.
Yeah.
And I just got fed up with it, and I had a friend who worked at a local manufacturer, also Gunsmith. And so I just called him up one day and said, hey, if you guys are ever looking for somebody, why don't you just throw my name out there? Because I'm about done with this, dog and pony show kind of stuff. Yeah. So 3 months later, I got a phone call saying, hey, you still interested in this job? And I said, absolutely. So I went over there and started working for this company. And it wasn't my favorite kind of work. It was gas gun stuff, which is I'm not a huge fan of, but it paid really well. And so that gave me something called disposable income, which is a nice thing to have. And so a good friend of mine, well, more like a really good acquaintance who's also a rifle builder, he had come to an agreement with the landowner and set up a long range and started having club matches. So I just took a hunting rifle and went out there and shot with a bunch of guys that knew way more about shooting long range than I did, and just had a blast. And it was a good hobby for probably 5 years. And while I worked for this company, and I just got out there and, shot these matches, and then traveled to a couple matches in different places, just in Montana. And then as time went on, my son was born, So after he came along, I started toying with that idea, and I thought, well, what should I do, and where could I fit into having my own business? Because I did not want to go back to general gunsmithing,
Mm,
because that can just turn into quite the quagmire
mm.
of all kinds of things. And so because I love precision rifles and I had barreled up my own precision rifle and everything was shooting really great, I started talking to competitors. And there are some companies out there that do just barrel work. And so I started talking to them, like, what do you think, the viability of this business model is? And then sat down with some guys that done a lot more shooting, and talked about different cartridges and what they would want out of a company they would do business with and buy barrels from. And so I just bought a lathe, started the FFL process, and started going to matches and promoting myself and talking to people, handing out flyers, um, sponsoring matches, giving out certificates for discounts, even free chamber jobs, just stuff to get your work out in front of people.
Yeah,
And you got to get some street cred, and
for
you got to
sure.
get some word of mouth going.
Especially
It's
with the
not just,
prices that run with this business, right? If you're a no name, according to a customer, and you want to
mhm.
charge them precision rifle prices, it's hard. It's a harder sell than if they know you and know your work quality.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of getting your stuff in front of people,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to market to people that shoot a lot. And there are some guys that are competitive shooters who they know a lot of stuff, and they'll know a lot of stuff you don't know. So you can learn a lot from them just talking to them, and they'll say, well, I ran into this problem with this manufacturer or with this barrel,
Yep.
and this is what I like to do. And because with competitors, you'll see some guys will have, the rifle that weighs 25 pounds, and some might have the rifle that weighs 17 pounds, and some have this scope and that scope. There's always differences between them, but there's usually like a baseline, you
Mm-hmm.
know, for quality of optics and barrel, want to go with. And so getting in touch with those competitive shooters, you can actually learn a lot of stuff that benefits you, and you deal with it, and help people out. This guy, put this barrel on my rifle and it's shooting awesome. So, and that's the best kind of advertising you can get.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are afraid to reach out to whether it be other gunsmiths that are more experienced than them, or someone in the field, or even the company of the manufacturer. I think people are afraid to, because it's almost, I wouldn't say embarrassing, um, but I guess it could kind of feel like that because you're having to reach out for help. But I'm telling you right now. So, um, for example, I have a Model 70 in the shop that had a original featherweight barrel on there, and I couldn't get the thing off. Just couldn't get it off. I tried everything I could do
Yeah.
to get that barrel off, and I basically put my entire body weight on it with a 2-foot cheater bar. Didn't do anything. I soaked it in Croil. I heated. I got some heat on there. I did everything I could think of without really just cutting it off and boring it out. And I reached out, man. I was like, look, I got to ask for help. And I asked Mark Novak down in Charleston. I was like, look, hey, what should I do? He's like, how much time have you spent already trying to pull that barrel off? And I was like, well, a good bit. A lot more than I would have liked to. He's
Hmm.
like, cut it off. Just cut it off. You're wasting time. I was
Yeah.
like, that's a good point, man. I mean, this is billable. I mean, not for this customer, it's not billable hours, but this is time I could be making money that I'm wasting, right? And
Yeah.
he made a good point. I went and tried a 4-foot cheater bar later, after I had taken a break from it
Hmm.
mentally. It worked, but it took my entire body
Hmm.
weight on a 4-foot cheater bar. And actually, I'm putting a Lilja barrel on that thing too. That's almost done. Just needs an extractor cut out, and it'll be good to go. I like Lilja, man. If anyone's listening, if you're curious, Lilja costs a little bit, but I think it's worth it, man. I think it's one of the better manufacturers out there, and they're a little faster than a lot of the other big names out there. They keep more in stock, from what I can tell. You look at Krieger and Bartline. Man, you're looking at like what, 8 to 12 weeks out
Yeah.
most of the time, and The Lilja, if you they got some stuff in stock, and even when they're not in stock, I think they were pushing 6 weeks, which is not as bad.
Yeah,
But
they're running a little further behind right now
ah,
because demand has stepped up.
yeah, it's
But
true.
you, but usually they're not bad at all, and they're worth the wait. So
I think Bartline has military contracts too. That's probably one of the reasons why they run so far behind.
and well, Bartland has a lot of retail carriers that they
That's
sell bulk
that's
to,
true too.
so they fill those big orders first.
I'm noticing a lot of the competitors are running. A lot of the top three finishing competitors, long range precision, have been running Bartline, which is interesting. I haven't machined a Bartline yet. I've worked on Lilja and Krieger and Douglas and McGowan. So far, the easiest and the nicest one to actually machine on for me has been the Lilja. That steel is smooth, man.
Yeah, it's the Carpenter's steel. It's high quality,
Yeah.
and the Kriegers are good. I've done the Bartlands, and they're very true and
Okay.
very
Good.
good uniformity. So, and they've all shot really great. So
Good.
I don't hesitate to put a Bartland on anything
Okay.
if that's what, sometimes that's what people want, and that's what they want to go with. So
Are you afraid to say any big name barrel manufacturers that people should stay away from if they're curious? Since just because you have worked on barrels more than I have, I've done some barrels. I've made a few precision rifles. I have not touched every single manufacturer, and I've not done 20 of each manufacturer. I don't know. Like, if you ask me, because I'm not afraid, I'll say whatever. I don't know which ones. Like, I know quality level goes up. I know a good gradient. I know Douglas and McGowan are okay. I would put them on hunting rifles. I wouldn't put them on precision rifles. I know Krieger, Bartline, and Lilja tend to be pretty good. I've only done one Krieger. So I don't know, man. It's something where I think if I was someone who was like, look, I'm really looking into the differences, I wish someone would tell me which one I should at least stay away from. But at the same time, if you don't want to, I completely understand, because you are, on the internet and things
yeah,
can go south.
yeah, I'm not. There's actually some cheap barrels out there that I've seen some good results with.
Really?
Yeah, but it's not the standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
And,
so
and can you
it's
guarantee it's consistent? You know what I mean? Like, maybe you
yeah,
got lucky, right?
yeah. I don't really like to throw too many names out there, but I'll just say if you see a barrel that's really cheap and it's made out of chrome moly steel, I would probably stay away from it. Chrome moly is more abrasive resistant than the 416R, which so it tends to have more problems than, if you look at manufacturers' quoted specifications, they will usually guarantee a stainless steel barrel to be straighter than chrome moly because it is a different animal to machine. And I don't
Yeah.
know quite the specifics of it, but that's just what I know from what I've seen. And it can be, if it's not lapped, it can be it can just foul incredibly bad.
I've also, from my understanding, please let me know if I'm wrong. I think chrome moly is also a catch-all term for more than one
Yeah, there's like
steel.
4140 and 4150,
Yeah,
and so, I'm not an expert on metallurgy.
me either.
I just know what works.
I wouldn't mind
But
trying some blacksmithing.
yeah, but
Okay.
but as far as a inexpensive barrel, I've seen some Green Mountain barrels, which are usually some of the cheaper ones out there, actually shoot really, really well.
I haven't even heard of them in years. Wow.
But I don't think that you're going to have the consistency that you would have with someone like a Lilja or a
Yeah.
Bartland. But anybody that's making something has been doing it long enough, they're going to crank something out that's really great. It might be an accident, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
usually a lot of stuff doesn't get past some of the quality control measures that these companies that charge more have.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That makes sense, man. Before we go any further, where can people find you? I did forget to mention that again. I'm busy, guys. Please forgive me. Do my best. Where can people find you, man? Online, social media?
yeah, so my website is fishertnc.com, and then I'm Fisher TNC07 on Instagram, and then that also is linked to a Facebook account. You
Cool.
can My phone number's on there, or email me. Or I'm also Fisher T&C on snipershide.com. I have a
Mm.
commercial account on there. So if you want to contact me through Sniper's Hide, I've sold barrels through there, just communicating through that forum. So
I need to get on Sniper's Hide.
it's
I, I
a
I go in there as a guest. I rarely ever go in there like log in or anything like that.
there's a lot of good information there, and you can kind of get a finger on the pulse of what people are doing and what they're looking for. And
Yep.
guys will go on there and talk about what they're building and show pictures of it, and it's a good way to kind of do some sort of just a visual survey of what guys are looking at out there. And then a lot of product announcements are done on there. So if you want to see some of the latest and greatest in barrels or optics or whatever, it's a good chance there's going to be a thread about it on Sniper Side. So
Makes sense. Makes sense. So
yeah.
I assume now, just by the base of of your company name, you are working for yourself now.
Yes.
For how long?
For how long it's been? I started this in 2020, so we're just
Okay.
going on about 2 years now
Fair enough. Fair enough.
myself. So I've been 10 years in the trade and finally got to where I know what direction I want to start pushing in.
Yep.
And it's what I've decided to do as far as precision barrels has been more about, it is about what I like to do and what I'm interested in, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a market for it, and that's
Yep.
important. So not always what, as gunsmiths, what we're passionate about is necessarily going to be a passionate market for.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
have to really consider that. I know, certain gunsmiths, they may not want to work on a certain type of gun, but if there's a
Mm-hmm.
market for it, maybe it's a good idea to gain some knowledge on that. But there is interest in this precision rifle world. It's growing, it's getting better.
Oh yeah.
The National Rifle League and the Precision Rifle Series, and then there are other precision rifle series. We have the Western Precision Rifle, and then we have the Devil's Brigade, which is a couple of series that we have locally here in Montana that are just local, homegrown, grassroots. But we got people traveling because a lot of the places they're hosting these matches, they've hosted national matches, PRS and NRL matches. So people are coming here from California, Utah, Nevada, even the East Coast, and they're coming. Some guys, I'm kind of jealous. They get to travel all over and shoot all kinds of matches, which
Yeah.
would be great. That's where I'd like to be someday.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Same here, man. Same here. I think you glazed over something that was a good point though. With if there's a market for something, even if it's not your favorite thing, it might be wise to get involved in it. And I think any gunsmiths or potential gunsmiths listening, if you're going to school or you're planning on creating a business, you need to figure out the market of your area because every area is different. I can tell you right now, in the area I'm in, the vast majority of average citizens with firearms, the most they do with it is hunt, right? So hunting rifles are very common, and I can't tell you how many Remington 1100s I've cleaned, shotguns, So your market. Now, I know the niche market within that market because I know a lot of the people in this area that are into precision shooting. They're into competition, USPSA shooting, a lot of stuff like that. So once you find a market that's got high interest in your area, if there's a void that needs to be filled, like Chase said, it's actually very wise for you to learn and get involved in that because you might be the person who can fill that void, and then that might allow you to do the things that you prefer to do, right? So what I honestly prefer, like I told Zeb the same thing, if I could choose just one thing to carry my business forever, it would be building rifles. I like building, and it's not just precision rifles. I like building just rifles. So if someone's like, hey, I got this Mauser 98, let's build a hunting rifle. Cool, I'm in. I'm all in. Like, I like it, But that's just not possible right now with my area and my customer base. It's just not there. My other passion is I just love military surplus guns. I love military surplus. I think they're super interesting. There's tons of history with them. I find them really awesome. Doesn't do me much good though from a gunsmithing perspective right now, like from in my area. So but you're right though. Be wise. Listen, put your ears to the ground, listen to your area, listen to the market. Don't get stuck in your ways and just things that you like to do. Because I know gunsmiths like that. who don't have
Yeah.
any business right now because they turn down everything that's not what they want to do. They turn down, and it's not going
Yeah.
well for them. So you're 100% right.
Sometimes we need to do what we have to do so we can do what we want to do.
Yep.
And also it's about what you can manage. What I have is I do pre-fit barrels. I keep some barrels in stock, um, threading and chambering barrels, and also threading just all kinds of different rifles for suppressors or brakes. There's a lot of that work too. It's not all taking the barrel off and putting on new barrels or barreling up brand new actions.
Yeah.
So I basically have four things I do. I have the pre-fits, barreling up an action. I do the Remington 700 bolt knobs, and then the muzzle threads.
Yeah.
And those four things, if I can market it well enough, I can stay busy, but I can manage those four things.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell people this is how much it's going to cost, and I know how long it takes to do, and I can tell them when they're going to get it back. And they like to know those things. Sometimes when you're a general gunsmith and they drop off some gun that you may not be able to find parts for, or you have to make parts for, it's really hard to say when it's going to be done or how much it's going to cost.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to just show up, drop the gun off, and say, "Here's a blank check, just make it right."
Yeah.
And and I don't blame people. They want to know what something's going to cost, and they want to know how long it's going to take.
Those customers do exist though, and they're the best.
Yeah.
The ones with the blank checks are like, just make it work. I love those customers. I ain't got to call them for permission. I just make it happen. I love them.
Yeah.
But you are right.
But yeah, they're not gonna keep food on the table because there's not you run into those guys. But most my customers, I've got carpenter, electrician, a guy that works on the railroad, construction guys, guy that works for a transportation company, just some of the people I can think of. I'm just mostly doing work for just your normal down to earth people. They're not infinitely wealthy. So, those people do have money they want to spend, because there will be some guys out there that make, a moderate living. They make between $40,000-$50,000 a year. So they're not extremely rich, but they'll have 12 grand tied up in a precision rig because that's what they're passionate about.
Yeah.
And, it's the same. You sometimes see people that don't have much money either, and but they'll have a $5,000, Gibson guitar because they're really passionate about music, because that's what's important to them.
Yep.
So they're willing to spend the money, but they have to budget just like the rest of us. So if you can give them a realistic answer on cost and time, they'll be more, likely to do business with you.
For sure.
And it's just like, well, man, I don't know when you're going to get it back. And, it could cost this much or that much. And I just don't know. And then act irritated with them, which I hear from a lot of people, a lot of gunsmiths do. People usually say something like, "Are all gunsmiths old and crotchety?"
Yeah, I know, that's a stereotype, man.
Not all of them. And I've been crotchety before, and that's a bad place to get in. And but that's something I've learned, to just engage with people.
Yeah.
And,
we get irritated because people will ask questions that we've heard a million times and we've explained a million times, or, but the thing is, that one person, that's their first time asking the question, right? Yeah. So you can't get upset with them. You have to just do your thing, explain it to them. But I like where you're coming from, man. I really like what you're saying. So you do pre-fit barrels. I like that. What, in your opinion, sets your pre-fit barrels aside from others? Whether it's other hobbyists or other gunsmiths. Sorry, go ahead.
So what sets the ones that I personally do?
Yeah, I mean, you think your quality's really, really good and up there? Is your attention to detail through the roof? What do you feel like sets you apart?
I think I'll talk to the customer and try to understand, what they want, and try to do everything I can to meet that need and not just treat everything like a cookie cutter project.
Yes.
And then the attention to detail, and then just the experience, because I don't do things the way I was taught. I've learned new things and come up with new stuff, and I'm sure it's something someone figured out somewhere else. It's not like I invented all the processes, but you just have to be open to, if you're seeing something and you can change it and do a better job, then you have to adapt to stuff. So that's kind of how I've developed, the ways I do stuff. And, being able to have good instruments to measure things, just the experience of measuring stuff is, you would be surprised, you can't, some people cannot read a depth micrometer accurately
Mm.
or know how, to measure it, and realize that, you can tilt it and you can be in or you can be way out and you won't know because you're not measuring it correctly.
By like 20 thou too. It's not even like a
Yeah.
small amount.
And just that experience of measuring stuff really, you know, pays its dues. And, I've measured a lot of stuff, and sometimes I'll measure stuff 5 or 6 times,
Oh yeah.
and, make sure, and then I'll turn stuff around and measure it from a different angle to make sure everything is in spec. And then I buy good gauges for measuring stuff, like thread gauges and things. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
I don't buy used ones off of eBay. I buy brand new stuff that's certified, and and
I
those
like it,
pay
man.
dividends when you're trying to get work done.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I measure everything like you said 5 or 6 times, and I draw my blueprints up, and then I'll go remeasure and check the numbers again because I'm OCD and I'm terrified. Like, oh, are you sure you got it right that last time? But I was raised with a father who didn't believe in buying the quality tool. He believed in buying cheap tools to get the job done, and then buying them again later if he needed to. Right? Um, and I could, even as a kid, I couldn't stand that. I'm like, Dad, you've bought 10 of the same tool, and that's more than you would have spent if you just bought the one good one. And he doesn't care. So I have always been of the mindset of buying the good tools
Yeah.
and letting them pay themselves off in quality. That's the value in the good tools. And micrometers, guys, he's not exaggerating. A good micrometer, aside from a crappy micrometer, huge difference.
Yeah.
Same thing with calipers, same thing.
Yeah. And I use like a Mitutoyo or a Starrett.
Mm.
And so I use Digimatic and digital. So the analog stuff is fine, but it's just way faster to have the digital or the Digimatic readout. And then that way you don't have to second guess yourself. You know what
Yeah.
you're looking at.
Mitutoyo is
And
a good brand, guys. Oof.
and some of the old machinists that I've come across say, "Oh, you kids and your digital stuff." And we go, if you're not comfortable with it, then don't use it. And those guys are not, for whatever reason, they don't like the digital stuff or the Digimatic stuff. And that's up to them. I don't know to, I
They just
use what
don't
works for
trust it.
me.
They just don't
Yeah.
trust it.
Yeah. But I can take a gauge block and set it on the ways in my lathe, and I can certify it's measuring exactly 1 inch with a 1 inch gauge block and make sure it's still in calibration. And then one thing some people may not know is there are places you can send your gauges off to and get them certified.
Yep.
So that's not a bad thing to do if you've been using the same depth micrometer for years, and maybe you dropped it, because sometimes stuff gets dropped and you just want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure. And there's also places that can get them repaired. So just because something stopped working doesn't necessarily mean you throw it away. You can
Yeah.
fix that stuff and get it recertified.
And a lot of times those services are cheaper than, like, let's say you drop a Mitutoyo micrometer. That's not a cheap piece of hardware. So sometimes it's cheaper to have it repaired or recertify, all that fun stuff, than it is to buy a new one. It's just, I have to wait for it. So I like it. I like attention to detail. I like precision. I like the fact that you've got experience in your field and you're applying that experience for yourself and your customers, obviously. So I really respect that. This one's more of not a personal question, but I think it's more of a fun question for me and hopefully the listeners too. Do you have a preferred action that you prefer to machine barrels from or for, right? Is there an action that you just like, it's your favorite one to make a barrel for?
Well, I really like them all, but um, I've had some really, and a lot of guys are going to say this, I've had some really good experience with the Zermatt, the TL3 and the Origin actions. Those are, I never can find more than a half a thousandths of variance from their blueprints. So they're
That's pretty
really
good.
nice. But if I was gonna and I just have a trued up Remington 700 because I'm a poor gunsmith, you know.
No,
So
that's a fine action. If you can blueprint it, you can make that thing good.
so that's what I got. But I think if I pony up eventually and get my own custom action, I would probably get a Terminus
That's a nice
because
action.
I just had one in the shop not long ago, and it has the features that I really like. And if I designed an action for myself or one that I was going to put on the market, it would be very similar to the Terminus.
Okay.
And so I was thoroughly impressed with it.
Do you like the Zeus or the what's the other one that's the same size? Is it Apollo?
The Apollo's the Apollo I was looking at, that was short action. The one
Oh,
I
okay.
just had was the one I just worked on was a Kratos light. If I'm
Oh.
saying, which is just it's a skeletonized
Yeah,
one
yeah.
to
That's
make it
cool, man.
similar to the like titanium weight actions.
That's cool.
So,
And so on the opposite end of the spectrum, are there actions that you hate making barrels for?
yeah, pretty much anything you have to do an extractor cut for. I
Dude,
just
I was
think
gonna
it's
say the
annoying.
same thing.
It's
I'm
just
so
annoying,
I'm so
you
sick of it,
know.
man. I'm so sick of it because it's I hate doing extractor cutouts, and as much as I love Model 70s and Mausers, I don't want to do barrels for them anymore because I'm tired of that cutout. It slows the whole process down because I don't have a milling machine. I got to go somewhere else to use the milling machine.
So yeah, the one that's really a pain in the neck is the Kimber 84L,
Really?
which is the little dainty super light thing that the Kimber makes.
Yeah.
And it has an extractor cut, and you have to mill a flat on the bottom where the front action screw comes up. And you have to do a feed cone, a 45-degree feed cone. So it's like, yeah, a feed cone and a extractor cut and a milled flat. So it's just like, come on.
I
Some of
know
these
it's
actions
too
were just
much.
like chamber them, thread them, boom.
Yeah,
They shoot beautiful.
700s.
They shoot beautiful, and they're great.
Yeah,
It's
I don't like doing cone chambers either, or cone breaches either, and partly because everyone. Okay, for example, if I asked you what angle the cone breach of a Model 70 is, what would you respond with?
what I, well, I think it's been a while. So I think it's 41.5 degrees.
Okay. Well, if you look on the internet, there's about 180 different answers for that question,
Really?
one for every degree.
Hmm.
Some Winchester websites would say all Winchester Model 70s are 96 degrees. I'm like,
Hmm.
nope, that can't be true. And then and measuring it is a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to measure that angle, that cone, a little parallel to the bore, it's not easy. So I can't stand doing it. The one I was doing, by the way, it was 49 degrees.
Hmm.
Why?
Okay.
Why? Why not 45? Make it easy. Make everything 45.
If I don't know, I put a protractor on the
Yep.
bolt,
Yep.
and I turn what I get.
Yep. I don't blame you.
I turn it till I got clearance.
Yeah. So I measured the actual the original barrel with the protractor multiple times, and the closest thing I got was 45. So I started cutting 45, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna triple check because I'm not comfortable about it. And I went to the bolt and I went to the bolt lugs, because the lugs are the opposite or the same, and they were 40. I kept getting 48 and a half and 49. I was like, all right, I'm going 49. I don't care what else happens. And you're right though. It's an annoyance. And I did not know the 84. Is it just the 84L or all the 84s that have that flat on the bottom of the back? Because I've only dealt with an 84M.
Yeah, the standard Kimber. The last time I remember, it actually been a while since I did one of those. They didn't have. They were a Remington 700 looking breech.
Yeah.
With an extractor cut. They actually had a recess. They didn't have a cone. This is the one that I remember doing.
Makes it a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't blame you. We're on right there. I wouldn't mind just saying I'm not doing any more cone breaches, but apparently the Model 70 is a good action. I can't blame people. Like, it's a good action,
Yeah.
Not the truest thing in the world, but having that flat bottom's really nice. I like Model 70s, man, and I don't like making barrels for them anymore.
Yeah. They have a certain I guess a style about them. I
Yeah.
had I didn't do any work to it, but I just did a transfer for a guy who had a 1903 A3 that had been sporterized, and those are super cool action. Um, and it's like you can use that cliches. They just don't make them like that anymore.
Yeah.
Mostly because they don't need to, but it's just neat. And I hate the square threads, so I never was
Oh,
a fan of
so much.
threading those.
So I don't
So,
know if you heard this on one of the podcast episodes, but I, for my last project for school back in the day, took a 1903 action and bolt and put a heavy Palma 6.5 Creedmoor barrel on there that I turned myself. Had to make the cutter for the square threads, because that has to exist, and it's a very specific number. And then I had to do the cone breach, first ever cone breach I ever did, and then first extractor cutout I ever did. And it's in headspace. It shoots 0.3 of an inch, but it's a long action. Trying to feed short action, it won't feed worth the crap. So I've been
yeah.
working on prototypes for a magazine follower system to put in that you can 3D print, so I can actually run it with a full mag instead of single loading it.
hmm
Because it'll come up, and on the left, I'm mirrored for you, but on the left hand, the right one will feed straight, and the left one will come up and pop over those rails and just shoot over into the extractor cutout and just totally jam it up. So I next 1903 I do will be a long action cartridge.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's they're just neat. I mean, that's all I mean, it's kind of an
For
overused
sure.
word, but
No, they are, man. And they're hard as nails. Good God. Trying to drill and
oh,
tap that thing for a scope base was a nightmare.
oh yeah, you have to use all carbide.
Yeah, and I broke 2 carbide taps.
Yeah.
I've never broken a tap before in my life until this action.
Usually I found if you tap receivers that hard, if you can do it, it's best to go up in size a tap because they're a little more robust.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I
but
was
if
very
you can
limited
get
on
away with it,
rails I could purchase though. That was the
yeah.
major limiting factor. There's only like 3 rails you can purchase for that thing. That are for drill and tap. One of them goes off the iron sights, and then a claw system. It's not cool. But no, you're right. I would have liked to have gone up a size. I'd really like to learn how to spot anneal so accurately that I can just spot anneal the spots for the tap, because that would make it twice as easy.
Yeah, but good luck getting your money back on that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
you'd have to get like a really high-end induction
yeah,
annealer.
yeah. Well, that makes sense. So, what would you say? Since I think we're on the same page there. I have an answer that I think is in mind for this next question. If someone's wants to get into precision shooting on a budget, right? And they're gonna put some money forward for a good barrel. Like they're gonna get a good barrel, but they want to save some money on the action. What kind of action would you recommend that's affordable but can still be turned into a decently shooting entry-level precision rifle?
Probably the Tika is a great one to start with.
That's a good answer.
Um, if you can find one like a Tika CTR
Yes.
or something that's a 6 or 6.5 Creedmoor, that's a good one to get started on. And shoot the barrel out or take the barrel off and put another barrel on it, whichever you want to do. The Tikas usually shoot really great right out of the box,
They do.
but they're 1 inch and 16 threads. They're real simple to rebarrel. The only kind of, it's not really a problem, but they have a really small barrel shank, so you got to turn that down to fit.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to get a lip there if you just go with like a normal 1 1/4 or a 120 diameter shank. I think you got to turn them down to like, I think it's a 1.125 or something.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's really small, but that's no big deal. It's not a big deal, but they're super smooth, and I do barreled or shouldered prefits for the Tikas because their tolerances are tight enough. I mean, I've measured several Tikas from different times they were made, and they were all within a couple thousandths of each other.
That's
So
awesome,
they're
man.
very consistent. So it's in some custom actions that you see, can't even hold that tight of a tolerance across the board. So
It's pretty
It's
impressive for a
definitely doable
manufacturer.
for a Tikka. You can be in that pre-fit barrel market where you can. It might be hard to get the the factory barrel off at first, but after that you can switch out barrels yourself if you didn't want to leave the action at a shop. So
Okay.
that's always
So my answer was actually going to be a 700 action because you can find 700 actions just everywhere. But I completely forgot about the Tikka because he's 100% right. Tikka actions are way better tolerances. They have way better tolerances than 700s. If you're going to get a 700, I'd be like, dude, you got to blueprint it. Like you got to blueprint it. So he gave you a way better answer than I could have. Tikkas are awesome. They're very underappreciated in my area. In the area I'm in, the average hunter thinks they're absolute garbage because they're not a Remington, and they have no idea that they have it swapped. Everyone thinks, not everyone in my area, but most of the average hunters, and I'm saying average hunter because I'm just talking about the average person who doesn't know much, doesn't care to learn. They think Remingtons are the gold standard and everything else is subpar. Not knowing that Tikka it's really a gem for the value, like money wise. You're getting really good quality.
Yeah, and I think it's just the way they've done their production, and it is a square-sided receiver, so they can index that in a CNC very consistently the way the action's shaped. And the the Remington 700s are extremely workable, but you have many different generations of them. And even the best ones, which I think are the most recently made ones, the ones that start with the RR in the serial number, those are very true. Those usually always need the lugs lapped at the very least.
Yes.
So
I've worked on two of those. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the Tikkas, I haven't had to do that. I've checked the lug contact, and it was great, and just didn't even touch it from the factory.
What do you like to see on that from a manufacturer, like a factory rifle? You looking for like 80, 75% where you're happy, or are you looking to get more than that?
Yeah, the most important thing I've found is that if it's touching equally on both sides.
Yeah.
If it's just riding one lug, then it's just going to shift, because people got to realize that bolt face that completes your chamber. That's the back of your chamber. So if it's not setting square, your cartridge is not going to sit square in the chamber.
Yep.
So that bolt is actually part of your chamber. But if you're in that, you want to be in at least the 80 percentile, I think is,
makes sense.
And then have a good finish on it. So
it's not. Oh, sorry.
Oh, it just have a good surface finish on the lap, so it doesn't have to. Because if it's real coarse, then it's going to settle more. So I like to go for like an 800 grit finish, and then I polish it. When I'm done, I polish it with the JB bore polish to just get a nice polish on the lugs. That way, I'm trying to just make them not settle much, because when you get like a new 700, for example, you'll see when it's brand new, you take the bolt out and you can kind of see where it's contacting. And then over time, as you shoot it, it will settle in and start to get more contact.
Yeah.
So I want to prevent that so that the headspace doesn't alter, as they're shooting it. And that should be something to be expected if you're having a gunsmith rebarrel your rifle.
Yeah. Well, I've been doing 600 grit. I might change my ways after hearing that. You mentioned, lapping lugs and everything, and it reminded me that when I did that 1903, the first thing I did before I started taking measurements was I made a mandrel for it, a machining mandrel, threw it in the lathe, and I gave it a true face. Right, I machined the face nice and true, and then I measured the lugs. I wanted to see the level of contact, and then the equal distance between each other, right? And I'm not kidding you when I say those two lugs were within half a thou of each other. I was like, I really thought this would have been worse quality from back then, but maybe the whole they don't make them like they used to is true. I mean, I couldn't make that better. Half a thou, I'm happy with that. I lapped it a little bit because I was I had about 60% contact on the lugs, and I moved it up to 80 through lapping, and I was like, they were still super true to each other. I was like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah, there's no reason to overdo something and just take up time, or you just end up right back where you started, kind of thing.
Yeah. That's a good point, man. I think we are getting close on time, but there's a couple more questions I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
I would like you, a guy who believes, or who is making some good quality barrels. Will you explain to the listeners the relationship between precision shooting and precision machining? How those interface and why it's relevant?
Okay. How much time do we have?
I know that's a big question, but something that they can understand if they have no idea why we care about precision. A gun's a gun, right?
Mhm.
Um, try to explain to them a little bit why that's not entirely true.
Why the what the sorry, say that again one
No,
more time.
it's okay. It's okay. Just the relationship between precision machining, very
hmm
tight tolerances, etc. Why that is related to shooting precision or just
hmm
being, let's just say, being more accurate, right? A more accurate gun. Let's put it that way for the average consumer.
Right. So consistency is what you want at long range, and with precision machining and being more precise, guys are going to shoot a lot. So they don't want like an incredible amount of variation going from one barrel to the other
Mm-hmm.
versus. So I could kind of answer that in one thing I had mentioned when we were corresponding was the CNC chambering versus manual machining chambering and some of the differences there. And you'll find that a lot of these companies, I would say they're big companies, but very notable companies that are
Mm-hmm.
making precision rifles. That's their market. They're doing a lot of the work on CNC, and they're selling it as the CNC is better. And it is for some reasons, but it doesn't mean that manual machines, you can't do an excellent barrel on a manual machine, which is what I use. The problem is the way some people are chambering on manual machines
Yeah.
is that we're not making, some of us are not making chambers that are repeatable. They're coming out a little different. And I've chambered barrels a lot of different ways, and the reason I do it the way I do it now is because I've gotten the most consistency. So as more precise the machining is from barrel to barrel, from action to action, the more it's going to line up with the precision rifle shooter, because he's trying to do the same thing every time,
Mm-hmm.
mitigating his shooter influence, his sight alignment, trigger control, and follow through. That's all shooting. And then at long range, you got all these atmospheric variables that come into play. And then so they don't want anything, to be completely different or too different from what they had, because what they're going to do is they're going to shoot a lot. And it's not so much how they shoot, it's the frequency they shoot. So if they're burning 10 rounds in 2 minutes, that's really hard on a barrel.
Oh yeah.
So guys are shooting out a barrel, every season easy. And some are shooting out 3 or 4 barrels, the guys that can shoot a lot.
Holy cow.
So when they're moving from barrel to barrel, they don't want to see as much variation at all. If they could have those 4 barrels shoot the same load, that would just be great for them, and not have to go back and reinvent every load and every powder charge.
Develop a new load and relearn this
Yeah.
gun and that's wasting time for them, right? So I would think that the big benefit of CNC, barrel creation, barrel machining, the only big benefit to me in my brain would be speed, how
Yeah.
fast you can make them. Versus, I wouldn't say it's more precise. I
hmm
would say it's more convenient, which
Yeah.
doesn't always lend itself to precision. So, I mean, would you disagree or agree?
Well, I could give you my take on it because I've been around it, and
Please do.
when I worked at a manufacturer. So the two things CNC really has going for it, um, like one that you mentioned was speed,
Mm-hmm.
and the second is rigidity, which is extremely important in machining, because when we don't have rigidity, we get vibrations, and vibrations cause chatter, and they cause things to move around, and we don't want that. We want stuff. And a lot of, if you take the lathe that a gunsmith has in his shop, which usually, the smallest lathe you'd probably want to use is maybe like a 12 by 36.
Yeah.
And then, you can do it with a lot smaller, for the guys that are doing their own barrels. But if you're going to do it like for business, You kind of want something with a little heft to it. Well, let's take a 12 by 36 lathe. It's going to weigh significantly less than the smallest lathe you would need to thread and chamber a rifle barrel. That's a CNC.
Yeah.
Right. So just that weight alone is going to translate into more rigidity, and they can run, and that's why they can run at higher speeds, because they have the rigidity. And also the computer control and the servo motors that can just move faster and more precise than we can jog stuff by hand.
Yeah.
So we're never going to replicate the speed with the manual lathe. So the biggest difference is that when you chamber with a CNC machine, there's really only one real way to hold the reamer, and that's usually in some type of a chuck, like a collet chuck. It's not necessarily going to be like a Jacobs or a keyless type chuck. Usually it's a collet chuck.
Yeah.
So it's radially and axially supported.
Mm-hmm.
So if the barrel is located, properly, like we do on a lathe, and the reamer is going to come in and it's either going to use a pecking routine, or some reamers are designed to punch the chamber straight in one pass. It just depends on the material and the type of reamer that you're using. But a lot of guys will use like a pecking routine, and they'll run a really high pressure coolant, which will evacuate the chips. So how we pull it out and we clean it off and then we go back in and stuff. So they're not really needing to do that, because they're running this coolant that's just, it's all enclosed, super high pressure.
When he says pecking routine, guys, what he means is we're running the reamer in, we're getting some cuts done, we're pulling it back out, we're cleaning all the chips out. Rinse and repeat. It's like you're pecking back and forth, back and forth. So that's just what he means by pecking. Continue though, good sir.
Yeah. So with CNC chambers, with everything, the operator still has to line everything up. You still have the skill that needs to get everything set up right.
Yep.
Because when they don't, they do what's called crashing a machine, and that's real expensive in a real short amount of time. So a lot of these chambers that are getting cut on CNC, they're actually getting cut straighter because of how the reamer is supported.
Okay.
And with some guys, probably the worst way to do it on a manual lathe, and I'm not saying an accurate rifle's never been built this way, but they're holding like the end of the barrel in a 3-jaw chuck or something, and then they have the shank on a rest, and then they're using some kind of a tap handle or a wrench, or I've even seen a really small lathe dog, and they're holding the reamer and then supporting it in the back with a dead center on the tailstock. So it can just kind of pivot on the dead center. I've seen people do it that way. And you can look on YouTube and you can find people doing it like this. Okay. So in that case, you do have some radial support when you're pushing it forward, and then but you don't have any axial support, because that reamer can just pivot back and forth on the dead center. So what happens if you've ever done a chamber like that or used any handheld reamer holder, when you put the reamer into the chamber, you can feel the barrel grab the chamber.
Oh yeah.
Grab the reamer. It pulls it. And what it'll do, if it's not supported, is it will pull it and it will bear to one side.
Yep.
So it's like we're tapping a hole and we're only holding one tap handle. And so we're already, cocking the reamer.
Gives you like an oblong.
Yeah. So that's already the problem.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I don't think a lot of people would realize is that even when we pull the reamer out, when we withdraw it, we can still be cutting, even though it doesn't matter if we're not going forward, if we're going backwards. So if our withdrawal of the reamer is not straight back, we can still cut on our way out, and that's making the chamber bigger. And so what will happen is between, say, the throat area, the free bore throat area to the back of the chamber, we're getting run out. So run out would be if we were zeroed at the rifling at the back of the chamber, the chamber's running out, say, 3/5 thousandths or so. So one way people used to get around this, and I think it's kind of it's a hybrid of old bench rest technique and then a lot of old surplus rifles being out there that had chambers cut in a big hurry.
Yeah.
And so it was like they take the bullet and they seed it out, and they're like, you got to be 20 thousandths, 10 thousandths off the lands. to get the gun to shoot. And some guns wouldn't shoot unless you had the bullet right up on the lands when you were hand loading.
Hmm.
You know, and the reason for that is the chamber was probably had a lot of run out in it.
Yeah.
And to get that bullet to start true into the free bore in the throat is what we had to put the bullet up there close.
Yeah.
So it's getting etched into the rifling square. And then, you know, so what I do with the manual machine to kind of replicate that straight motion
Mm-hmm.
is I align my tailstock, and I use a ground tailstock alignment or lathe alignment bar. The one I use is a Turn Tight is the brand name.
Okay.
And I align my tailstock, and then I use a ground keyless chuck to hold the reamer. And it's similar to the chuck you would use. It's not a collet chuck like you would find on a CNC, but it holds it similar. So it's radially and axially supported. So, and then I punch this chamber straight ahead, and then I'll even, when the reamer is going into the chamber at the very beginning of it, I put an indicator up on that reamer and I measure for deflection.
Okay.
So what that does is I'm making sure that my reamer is lined up to the bore. And because I align the tailstock itself, but then I have to think about the chuck and the reamer itself. I got to make sure those are aligned, because there can be tolerance stacking. And usually 99% of the time, if my tailstock is aligned, I get no reamer deflection.
Good.
So I'm going straight ahead. And then when I withdraw the reamer, when I pull on the tailstock, I grab it underneath the barrel of the tailstock or over the top, and I make sure I'm pulling it straight back, straight in and straight back. So when I get done, I've got a chamber that has no more than 1/1000th run out. And you can get away with more run out than that, but I don't like to get any more than that.
Yeah.
And you can actually get 0 sometimes, but I mean, if you're 1/1000th or less, I mean, that's
good. That's really good.
That's really great. So
yeah,
that's what's going on with CNCs. And I've heard some people, very credible people, very knowledgeable people in long range shooting, say that, you can't do a good job on a manual machine. And I think what we have is we have some ignorance, and then we just have some plain old class warfare. And so we have there's a couple of companies, I won't name them, but I've heard them advertise their CNC stuff and say, we don't chamber a rifle on a $4,000 lathe. We use a $400,000 Haas machine.
Oh, big flex.
And then I hear one company actually did an ad. It was an email ad. It had a picture of an old lathe, and I don't know what it was. It was probably something like an old LeBlanc or GM lathe.
Old Clausen.
Yeah, could have been something like that. And then they had a picture of their brand new Haas machine. It said, "Would you rather have your barrel chambered on this or this?" And I actually talked to a machinist as a CNC programmer, and I said, "Hey, look at this." And he goes, "Oh yeah," as if making threads is so difficult. And it's just like, I guess to the person who's the laper, they wouldn't quite get it. But then I watched this company do a demo video of threading and chambering this on this amazing lathe, and they did it on a live center and didn't use a crown protector. They didn't even dial in the bore. They just put the barrel straight onto the steel live center, and it comes in, and it, I would guess it's probably cutting threads at 600 RPMs or so.
Holy
pretty fast.
Cow. Yeah.
So it's doing a real fast, probably really great looking threads, but they're just, I was like, I hope that's a demo barrel and not a customer's barrel that you're just jamming onto a hardened, live center.
Oh, we'll recrown it later. Don't worry.
Yeah. And that doesn't matter. It's only the last place the bullet touches.
Yeah.
So
no big deal. Yeah.
But you see that kind of thing. And the truth is you can do a good job on both.
Yeah.
And you can screw it up on both too.
Oh, agreed.
So
at my school, they had, I don't know, 25 lathes, and I refused to use any lathe in the shop but one, and it was the oldest lathe in the shop. It was really an old Clausing. There was a LeBlanc, another Clausing that was a lot newer, a bunch of really crappy, I don't even know what brand they were. I legitimately couldn't tell you the brand. They wouldn't turn threads true. They wouldn't, a lot of them had bad, what do you call it? threaded rod runs across the lathe. I'm sorry. What's it called?
The lead screw.
Lead screw. Thank you. I blanked out. Bad lead screws. They had 2 Grizzlies, and then they had 3 brand spanking new that year, like brand new closings. Okay. The oldest lathe in the shop outturned when it came to precision. You know, and I'm sure it could just be alignment, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that thing outturned everything else in the shop, and I refused. I mean, it was falling apart too. I mean, the compound rest screws, the lockdown screws for the compound rest, were snapped. I took them out and rethreaded some new ones and put it back in there. Like I was using this machine, because it was giving me fantastic results. But it just shows that just because something's new and expensive doesn't mean it's automatically better. There is someone who has to run the machine, and blueprints have to be followed, specs to manage. This thing, it's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, I got a $500,000 machine.
Yeah.
Whoop-de-doo.
And I've heard people say that these people running CNCs have no passion. And I've met several programmers, and they're very passionate about what they do. Machinists, even if they have nothing to do with the gun world, they're usually have some high standards. A lot of them. There are a few out there that just hit cycle start and walk away and never measure anything. But there are the guys that do a really great job and take it very seriously.
And I think it's really cool that you can write a program that creates a 3D blueprint to be cut. That's cool. I think that's cool. It's above my pay grade. Not something I can do, but I think it's cool.
Yeah. It's essential, and we're benefiting from it with some of these receivers that are being made. So, good stuff can be done with all this stuff. And then when you're getting these straight chambers, no matter who's doing or how they're doing it, you'll probably bullet technology and powder technology has gotten better, so we're getting better factory ammo. Of course. And one of the reasons why everything's shooting so good is that we're getting better at chambering rifles. And ideally, like when I chamber a barrel, I don't want a customer to have to go through 5 or 6 bullets and 4 or 5 powders to find something. First off, you have the barrel quality, and then you should do a good job with the chamber so that the barrel is forgiving.
Yeah.
You just don't have to jam the bullet into the lands to get the thing to shoot like some. If you have a barrel that's shooting like 3 5-inch groups with every other bullet, then you just find one that works. That's a little weird. I mean,
it's not a picky barrel. It's done poorly.
Yeah, and it's and sometimes it's just bad barrel quality. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing it on a good barrel, I mean, you should like some of these Lilja barrels I do. Guys are shooting 4 or 5 bullets and finding 4 or 5 different loads. Not trying 4 or 5 bullets, finding 4 or 5 different loads.
Yeah.
It's like, and they'll just go with the one, like usually the one they get the most bullets for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just depending on how the market is. Or they'll just say, well, this one shoots a little faster. And usually if something has a little more speed to it, then, that's more forgiving with wind and things like that, because speed will definitely make up for, some of that. So it's better to have something that shoots maybe like a 1/2 inch and shoots a little faster versus something that shoots 1/4 minute and slower for the long range field rifle.
Well, I mean, you're right though. I mean, ammo's come a long way. That 1903 that I made in 6.5 Creedmoor, it found a load it liked. It took 140 grain Hornady ELD matches at 0.3 inch from a factory load. I mean, how can you ask better than that out of a factory load? I can't imagine what it would shoot, hand loaded. Yeah. I mean, I'm not worried about it until I can get it feeding a full magazine, but it's cool.
Yeah. Some of this factory ammo, you're hard pressed to get hand loads to shoot that good.
Yeah. But, and I haven't even found. I haven't even been able to find 140 grain federal gold medal matches, whether it's the Burgers or the Sierras. Those haven't existed in 2 years. So I'm still waiting to test that on that gun because it might like those more. Who knows?
Well, things are starting to loosen up a little bit. I ordered some ammo from, I think, straight from Federal, and I ordered some powders. I ordered some powder straight from Hodgdon and got it in a few weeks. So things are starting to loosen up a little bit. You just got to be on your toes.
Yeah.
And be checking stuff. So
makes a lot of sense, man. Was there anything else?
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh no,
that's all I'm saying.
You're right. Prices are coming down. Heck, ammo prices alone are plummeting, which is a really good sign. And if you're listening to this in the future, guys, it is July 2021, and this is the light at the end of the tunnel for ammo, at least. Ammo has finally started coming down. You're seeing really reasonable prices again. We just got to wait for quantity to come back up and just hope that production doesn't result in poorer quality. We're already seeing Remington's new ammo line really sucking, just cranking out a lot of crap right now. So, and that's me. That's not Chase. Chase has nothing to do with that statement. That's me and what I've seen in person. It's really sad. They're bringing the prices down, though, so I'll give them credit. They're cranking out so much ammo. They're bringing prices down for the market.
So are we over time?
Yeah, a little bit. But, I mean, is there anything else you would like to bring up before we go, man? I haven't put out a podcast in 2 weeks, so I'll give the people a little more. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
So just for new gunsmiths and people that are looking to expand their client base is if you're a gunsmith and you're looking for customers, you need to get out and shoot competitively. Don't be afraid to suck, because you will, and nobody's really going to care how you shoot. It's not, as long as you're not doing anything completely ridiculous and unsafe. They're usually a very social group of people, and they like new people. So if it's trap or clays, if it's long range, if it's IPSC, if it's just 22 stuff, whatever there is, if it's even long range black powder, you get out there and talk to those people, and, they own all kinds of different guns. It's not like they own one gun. So, and then, like I said, competitive shooters are a social group, so they talk, and that's probably how I've produced the most business, is just grassroots. Just talking to people, handing out flyers. You can easily spend, $500, $1,000 on Google ads, and no one will ever call you.
Oh, yeah.
But you could just, doing some promotional work, even if it's something for free or at a great discount, that's the best kind of advertising to do. And the one thing that has gotten me more work is getting my work done. So because most of the stuff that I get right now comes from referral. So,
yep, same
so
here.
I have a guy call me up and say, "Hey, I talked to this guy. You did a barrel for him. I'm looking to kind of do the same thing." And then, that's the best way to do stuff. And then also social media is grassroots. So engaging with people on social media, you can, that's the next best thing to talking to people. So taking pictures of stuff, putting it on Instagram, doing videos.
And give proof of your quality, give proof of the work you're doing. Show before and afters if you're doing general gunsmith stuff, or, show if you're doing precision stuff, show the groups you're landing, But he's 100% right that word of mouth is really important, especially in this trade, because people trust people they know, right? So maybe they'll see your advertisement and not care because they don't know you. But maybe you do work for their friend, and the friend tells them. Now they're more likely to come to you, because this trade is going to be a lot more word of mouth focused. I've learned that I make way more of my business from, like you said, referrals, people telling their friends, people telling their family, has had a bigger effect on me than any of my social media, any of my advertisements. I do advertisements at local places. I'll put some cards out and stuff like that. Maybe some stuff on boards, billboards and whatnot. Not billboards, cork boards. But it's just not the same as word of mouth. Someone tells someone, "Hey, this guy did this for me. It's really good." They're gonna look you up. They're gonna contact you. So he's right, guys. But I mean, definitely still do social media though. I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? And I do get some of my stuff from out of state. That have been from social media, but word of mouth is really important. Just don't ignore it. Don't ignore word of mouth.
And competitive shooting it's intimidating for some people.
Oh yeah.
And I know I've been there. Like, I remember riding this pickup with all these guys, because we had this range we were going into. We had to carpool in because of the road condition. We didn't want to tear up the road with too many vehicles. So we were all piling in trucks, and I'm sitting there in this truck. And this is when I first started, and I just had a hunting rifle, and all these guys got like all this fancy gear. And I'm just like, wow, I feel really out of place. I don't even want to be here right now. Yep. I feel like I suck already, but I had a great time. And then that stuff just wears off,
Yeah, no, you're right. My first time going to USPSA competitions, I was like, wow, I have the worst holster, the worst belt, the worst gun, the worst magazines. But, I realized I'm just here to have fun, and talk to people. I got middle of the pack and I was happy, And with long range, I've never been into a long range competition. I'm not there yet. But I have shot at 1,000 yards with a buddy of mine, and he took me out there and he sets me up on his $4,000 rifle setup, looking through his $3,000 binoculars behind me, using his big old Kestrel just spinning in the wind. And I was like, I don't know what this world is, but I'll pull the trigger. Like, I don't know what's going on,
What are you doing?
But it was so cool. I mean, you hit that 1,000 and you hear the ding and it ring and you're like, wow. And I 100% get why it's an instant addiction, And I wanted that 1903 to be my 1,000-mile rifle, or not 1,000 miles, 1,000-yard rifle. And it will be one day when it can afford to, load rounds.
Yeah. Well, it's pretty cool because you got a 6.5 Creedmoor in 1903 on a 1903. So
That
it's
was
kind
the
of
thing.
the old world
Yeah,
meets the new.
I wanted it to be unique and one of a kind, and it is. It's just that I had to go with a Boyd stock, which I hope you don't mind me saying is very subpar quality. But they're the only ones who make 1903 stocks. The only ones. There's no one else. So and even though I've got the barrel free floated with the heavy Palma, it's very thin stock, so it flexes like crazy. Even though it's bedded, it won't maintain a free float. After about 5 shots, it starts to creep up. So I will be carving a new stock for that one day out of walnut and just doing it all by hand again. But that's a time for a different day, where I have time to fiddle around with my own projects. Right now, it's customers. So
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, Chase, this has been awesome, man. Tell them again where
Yeah.
to find you in case they forgot and don't feel like going back.
Okay, so fishertnc.com. So that's T and C, so spelled out. And then Instagram is Fisher TNC 07 at Fisher TNC 07 on Instagram.
Yep.
And then my Facebook is the same thing.
So
Fisher
guys, if you want
TNC.
barrel work, and he has mentioned some of the receivers he does pre-fit barrels for, you guys should hit him up. I can guarantee you he's going to be faster than I am. I promise you. I don't even care what he says his lead time is. It's going to be faster than me. Trust me. I'm way behind. I'm so far behind right now. His quality is good. I've actually looked at some of his product. I can already tell it's pretty good quality, guys. Check him out. Like if you're in Montana or if you're willing to, buy a pre-fit barrel, hit him up. Don't be afraid to reach out to these guys. Chase, do you ever keep stuff in stock, or is it all made to order?
Well, so I keep barrel blanks for what I can. I'm really heavy on 6mm right now. It seems like everybody wants a 22. I've done several 22. I've done some 22 wild or 223 wild.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are wanting to shoot 223 and then 6.5 stuff.
I wouldn't mind trying 6 arc though. I've been seeing some really interesting stuff about 6 arc. I don't know if you know much about that.
Yeah, it's a gas gun cartridge primarily, but I think in a bolt gun it can be pushed. I know it can be pushed a lot harder, so it could be pretty fun to play with.
Well, I might have to hit up Chase myself because I don't feel like making myself a barrel. So I'm not even kidding. I might actually hit you up for a barrel sometime in the near future if I can afford to.
Well, I got for my pre-fit actions or pre-fit barrels. So I can do right now American Rifle Company, Bighorn Zermatt, Curtis, Defiance, Ruckus, Tenacity, Impact Precision, Terminus, and Tika.
Ooh.
So
I know where to find a Tika right now. So
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, guys, that's his list of pre-fits. So that's stuff where you don't need to get it. I mean, how would you describe it? You don't need to go send your action in, right?
Yep, you don't have to send your action. If
go.
it's for some of these, most of these are all people are going to buy the action outright.
Yep.
99% of the time. For the Tika, the barrel removal can be a real problem.
Yeah.
For some people, so I've had to cut them off, and sometimes you can just get that cheater pipe thing going, and you can pop them off. But
is it just the torque they use is out of this world, or do they use some kind of like a rock set style? Just what's the issue with the Tikas?
I'm not, I haven't quite put my finger on it. It's got to be some type of I've heard, it's one of those things on the internet I've heard a million different answers for.
Yeah.
I've even heard they heat something up and then screw it together and it cools and I'm like, I don't even know
Model
if that's a
70s,
thing.
actually, from what I
You know,
hear, there was a generation of Model 70s where they would do a heat fit. And I don't know if that's the generation I have, and I don't know if that's 100% true. A lot of the gun world can be hearsay. But I know that it was insanely tight, and I even, I don't know if I told you this, but I put a relief cut in it right behind the shoulder, try to relieve some of that tension. Didn't make a difference, and there was enough rust in there to completely fill up the undercut behind the threaded tenon. That was fully filled up to the level of threads with rust, and when I tried heat, there was a lot of stuff coming out. So I'm pretty sure there was a combination of things that led to that it being an issue. I've never taken the barrel off of a Tikka, so I haven't experienced it yet. So good warning though. Next time someone tries, I will be scared.
yeah, they can be quite a handful sometimes, and it seems to vary. Some of them you can just grab a hold of and you can pop it off of there. Some
Yeah.
of them it's just more stubborn than others.
Yeah.
And that could just be the environment it's lived in,
Yep.
So
Well, awesome, man. Well, they know where to find you, guys. Make sure you look up tbrgunworks.com or on Facebook or on Instagram, all of which is TBR Gunworks. Make sure you hit up Chase for any of your needs that he can fill. And if you just want to follow him and look at future stuff he's doing and future services he's going to offer or work he's going to put in, make sure you follow him. Give him a shout out. And thank you so much for listening or watching. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Chase, for being here. I really appreciate him being here too. He reached out, but I'm really glad he did. So if you're a gunsmith, don't be afraid to reach out. We'll look at your stuff, and if you're offering a good service like Chase is, then we're going to feature you. We want to push you guys. We want to make sure people know who you are, okay? And I don't have anything else to add. Chase, do you?
nope. We could talk about way more stuff, but I think we're out of time.
Oh yeah. I think we're about almost at an hour and a half, so we're past time.
Yeah.
But we needed to put something up that was good. So guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. Remember, all gun laws are an infringement. Have a great rest of your day.